Thank you and welcome everyone. I really appreciate all the likes and the positive feedback everyone's still sending, so we're still going to keep making these videos, so it's awesome to see you here again. I wanted to talk about layouts and just make sure that we're clear on a couple of concepts. We have previously discussed it very briefly, so I'm just going to go over this again. A web page is kind of this 960 grid-like thing. We talk 960 in terms of the amount of pixels we have on the screen from the left to the right. If someone says, well, all right, well, that's the width, what is the height? Well, the height's however long you make it, because it's a web page. It will continue to scroll and scroll and scroll infinitely, and that's kind of what this 960 or 960 GS website discusses. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that there's this distribution of like, let's say 2/3 to a third on the page, and you can see that a lot in terms of the designs. And it comes from a little bit of a study of Fibonacci numbers, and Fibonacci numbers kind of gives you this thing, which is the golden spiral or the golden ratio, whatever you want to call it. This thing allows you to create organic looking pages, layouts, contrast, all those kind of things that you create potentially through the Fibonacci sequence. It's kind of like cheating. You're using math to make things look organic and real. So I just need you to be aware of Fibonacci numbers existing and the grid system being this kind of 960 thing. And then we can go over and play in the codepen. So the codepen for today is that link. You should see it in the description below the video if you need to click it and check it out. But here's what we're going to do. And again, I'll just sideline JavaScript because we're not using JavaScript and we'll have more room here for us. So imagine we have a div, and I'm going to give the div an ID, and I'm going to call this box1. It's a terrible name for a div, and I'm just going to put box1 in it. But I just want to make it clear what we're doing. So you've got a box1 div. That's just a bit of text inside of a div called box1. In your CSS, you can then say hashtag box1 squiggly bracket background color. Let's make this box1 red. And instantly you see how big that box is. So by default, a div is just kind of spans the whole kind of width of this page. So if I keep going and I make a box2 and change it in both of these IDs, then I'm also going to get lazy. I'll copy that whole hashtag here. I'll change that to box2 and I'll change this to blue. So what happens here is we get box2 straight underneath box1, because divs, they take the next available space, they take the whole width of the page, and basically that's how they play together. Now when we have these boxes, they also could be specified to have something specific. So I could go in and I could say, look, I actually want you to, I'll put a semicolon here, and I'll just split this up onto a few lines to make it a little bit more readable. So we've got the background color. Then I'm going to say this one's going to have a width of only 400 pixels. So that now makes that smaller. If we go back to the Fibonacci numbers and we look at all of these different things, I could say that actually my red one is going to be 210 pixels, while my blue one, let's just put that on the next line as well, and put a semicolon there because I'm going to add an extra property, which is going to be the width one again. And this one's going to be 130 pixels. So now we're playing with Fibonacci, and that's kind of the extension of that. But what we want to do is we want to understand, how do I get them on the same kind of line? How do I get the blue one on and behind this red one? So we're going to have to do some magic for that, which is this display inline thing, which allows us to, not display inline, what am I doing? Display block box none, makes it hide, inherit. Which one am I doing? And this is where I get stuck. This is fantastic. W3 schools. Let's go to W3 schools and let's look for our display property. So go to CSS actually. In our CSS, we want to find the display, which is here. And The display property is the most important CSS property for controlling layout. Thank you, W3 Schools. The display property specifies blah, 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 block inline, and I said inline. Blah, 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 show this panel. Yes, and block. Yes. Okay. So we know that, but there's my inline. I thought I wrote that. Here's our examples. So that removes it, that hides it, that resets it. There's hidden, more examples, visibility, hidden, da 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 da. Let's try this again. Let's have a look here. So I think the problem, and this is a problem because inline is correct, but inline gets the whole space around it to go away, which is not really what I was after, because I wanted them to go in one after the other. So we'll do this. Now inline will move them up, but because the content in the box isn't big enough, inline kind of collapses it. So there must be another option. There must be. Can we have a look at the details around this? And I want to know, where's my display? Yeah. And we're just back here. No, oh, here's my definition. Inline, 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 inline. Inline block, there you go, that's the one. So inline block and inline block. So it still listens to the width, but it doesn't actually kind of mess around with this. Now there's more display properties that you really want to get familiar with if you want to be doing some cool layouts. This is a pretty, this is an older way of doing it, and there's a new way which is flex, and flex is kind of awesome, but it's different to what we're just looking at here, which is just positioning things. But one of the main things around it is that it allows you to do some things that the normal display stuff doesn't, which is this traditional stuff we're looking at. All right. To keep this a little bit brief, what I want to do is put these guys in the box. So since they're boxes and I don't want to have boxes inside the boxes, I'm going to say container. So this div's going to be ID equals container. And I'm not going to close the container until after these divs. So that one basically, let's just indent those. The container opens and closes there. What I'm then going to do is make sure that I define the container up the top. And in my container, what I'm going to do is say width is, what's 210 plus 130? That's like 340 pixels. I think that's what it is. Anyway, so we'll do that, which should get enough room in there for these two. But it's not, it's wrapping on the next one. So I guess I have some margins. So I'm just going to put margin 0 pixels. Is that going to help? No, padding 0 pixels. Still not happy. We probably have some margins and paddings on that one. Do I want to bother changing this? Padding 0 pixels. Let's do it in both. No, it's the margin. It's the margin. Is it the margin? It's always the margin. It's always the margin. Except this time. Maybe my math is wrong. No. I'll just make the container bigger. So it is some kind of gap between these two. But it could be a HTML gap. Yeah, so let's get rid of these. And then let's get rid of these. And these. So sometimes HTML, if you have a space like that, will push out your blocks, and when they get pushed out, they'll just go on the next line, which is undesirable, obviously. Let's just see if I can fit them in with the 340. Are they happy? Yep. I'll just do 339 just to prove that that's not big enough. Yep, good. And then I'll just put 340 back in. Okay, so if you've got a container, and this container actually has these boxes in it, and the boxes are where they should be. Fantastic, right? Then your next step is to center the container on the page. And obviously, if you were doing 960, this would say 960 because your page container, that can, all of the stuff would be 960. And then these other guys would be much bigger as well. So because I've got a small screen that I'm doing the recording on, I've just used these numbers. So you use whatever you like. We're going to do this. We're going to say margin auto, right? And we're going to do margin auto so the center's on the page. And as a result of that, these guys are now, whenever I resize this window, it's going to still go back and center where it was. So that's kind of a cool thing to be aware of, that you can create a container. The container can kind of center. The items within the container will then center with the container. If you didn't want to, center it, you can also offset it. So you could say margin left is going to be 40 pixels. And that's also acceptable, right? So that's going to be like, hey, I'm going to push this over a little bit as well. So those are the little things I wanted to kind of show and cover. Think about the grid system, think about Fibonacci numbers because they just make things look elegant and nice. And then in here you can start, putting out your content, so you can have lots of extra text in there. And as you kind of type, what's going to happen is this box that you have will just keep going down. Your blue box is the same, right? So if you put content in there, that will keep going down as well. And then eventually you can actually change these colors to something nicer. So you can just kind of say 999. Let's just do that. And that one we might make, I don't know, 333. Oh, not 333, AAA. Let's just do AAA. There you go. And then you can see those boxes still being a little bit different from one another. Let's not do that. There you go. Done. All right. Probably the longest and the worst video, so I apologize for all the mistakes and things. I'm going to keep them in because I want to know if you want to see mistakes or if you want me to edit them out and do the videos and make them shorter. So leave your comments in below. Again, these are experimental things. We really want to know what you think and what's going on. If the videos are too long, tell us. If you don't like mistakes in there, tell us. If you're going to have a go and mess around with this code that we just created here anyway, what you can do is just use that URL that I'm going to have in the comments box, so you'll be able to kind of grab that and yeah, have some fun with it. So hopefully this made sense. You can see I'm human as well and I make mistakes, and I forgot the little dash block thing. I haven't used it in a while, so there you go. But this stuff is not meant to be things you commit to memory. That's what W3 Schools is for. This is your dictionary. It's free. You can look up all these specific things as you need them, and that will give you a lot of information about what it is and how to do it if you're interested. But definitely something that you just kind of learn as you go, and then you remember that there is a way to do it and you figure it out until it's done. So CSS stuff for styling, HTML for content. We've got a container, we've got two boxes, we've got a basic layout. I'm going to change this to margin auto because most people just want to have it centered so you guys can see it centered. And I might add some more random letters there, so these boxes are at least the same size, not to scare people away when they get to this page. Done. All right. So enjoy, have some fun with this. Hopefully it's slowly making sense and you're kind of getting into it. Remember, it's all meant to be a bit of fun. So if it's fun, we're doing it right. If it's not fun, you got to tell me what else I can do to help make it a bit more fun. So thanks again for tuning in. I shall see you guys next time. But tomorrow, which is Friday, we have a session at 6 o'clock. So if you can make that, that would be wonderful. That'll be our collaborate session. So it'll be live. Bring your questions, bring yourself, have some fun. Until then, see you and have fun.